Hi guys, and welcome to episode 2 of our competitive guide for the Video Game Championships 2018. So we kicked off last week with a competitive guide on Landorus Therian form, which I kind of, from playing past formats, thought was probably one of the more relevant Pokemon to start with because we're going to be seeing a lot of it. Now next on to some brand new Pokemon that we've got in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and we're going to look today at Stakataka. So it's a new Ultra Beast. It is a Rock and Steel type, as you can see on your screen here. We've got all the information. The PokemonDB.net website will be linked in the description below if you want to go and check out this Pokemon as well as any others, but it gives a nice overview of its typing, which is, as we say, the Rock and Steel type. It's got the Beast Boost ability, and we can see its stat distribution. So 61 HP, not brilliant, but not the worst. It's not great though. We've got an incredible attack of 131, which is kind of fitting of a classic Ultra Beast, you've got to say. A defense stat of just a phenomenal amount of 211, which is really kind of fitting towards more of its typing with its Rock and Steel type in there. Special attack we don't need to worry about. Special defense 101, which isn't too bad. And then the prime peach, the nugget of the whole thing, is its speed, base speed, as 13, which makes it an incredible Trick Room Pokemon. It's going to underspeed pretty much everything in Trick Room when it gets in that environment, and with that big 131 attack stat, it's going to be doing a lot of damage. So it is very good, very strong. It's got some nice resistances in normal, flying, fairy, rock, bug, psychic, ice and dragon. So all the nice things that Steel kind of helps resist, as well as some rock attributes there. You've got an immunity to poison, which is always nice, pairs up with pairing it in your team with a fairy type, so you've got that defensive synergy there, if it's something you kind of want to do. But it has got its drawbacks. It has got some huge weaknesses. So it's 4 times weak to fighting, 4 times weak to ground, and 2 times weak to water. So the fighting and ground weakness are pretty huge here, because they are going to be very common attacks, and with how good I think Stakataka will be in the new format, we're going to get a prevalence of fighting and ground coverage in teams. Ground is already well covered anyway with things like Landorus Therian form. You've got things like Gastrodon that are new in the format that get access to Earth Power, Heatran Earth Power, Torkoal Earth Power. So it's got a lot going against it, but at the same time it's very good and you can support it very well. And once it gets going, I think it's going to be a very good Pokemon, and it's going to be, like I say, I think probably one of the staples we're going to see on a lot of VGC teams. So just to kind of cover some quick information for you guys, just a notable move pool. It's moves that it learns. So the support moves that I would like to just highlight for you guys are, it gets access to Trick Room, which is huge because it's so slow. Normally with Trick Room, very good Trick Room Pokemon, they don't normally have access to set Trick Room up themselves, but with Stakataka you've got the ability to set the Trick Room up yourself, which is pretty amazing. It's got access to other support moves like Wide Guard, Ally Switch and Gravity, which are just really incredible options to have at your disposal. I'll give notable mentions to things like Magnet Rise, Roleplay. For instance, Roleplay, you could have maybe your Cresselia out and you can't skill swap, or you haven't got access to skill swap. If you've got Roleplay there, it's quite niche, but you can Roleplay maybe the Levitate to avoid a ground type attack coming in. Or if you've got it sitting in front of a Heatran and you expect fire type attacks for some whatever reason, you can roleplay the Flash Fire or Storm Drain from a Gastrodon or anything and everything. So you've got those options. It's quite, as I say, a niche option, but it's something I think worth noting. It does get access to Recycle, so if you ever want to go down the 50% berry route as well, that's a nice option. Or Lumberry or anything like that that can be recycled, it's quite a nice option. And Reflect as well, because one of the big things, like we've already mentioned, is its big weaknesses are fighting and ground type attacks, and they're predominantly physical type attacks. You do get obviously the special variants, but I'd say the physical type spectrum of these attacks is probably more common, so Reflect could be quite handy in certain situations. Attacking options, it's got Stone Edge, Gyro Ball, Rock Slide. I think they're going to be your kind of staples on most sets, and they've got the same type attack bonus as well, so making it a lot stronger. And notable mentions on its attacking moves are Earthquake and Superpower. So Earthquake gives a nice option to hit things like Heatran, as well as Superpower does, and opposing Stakatakas as well. Both attacks there can hit 4 times. Super effective against opposing Stakataka. So with how common I think it probably will be, it's probably going to be something that people rely on to counter opposing Stakatakas. Maybe calc to survive an Earthquake or a Superpower from the opposing one. Especially if it's Superpower with the drops, you're definitely going to be picking up the KO if you're going second with your own Superpower. So just some notable mentions there. And we will move on. I do want to keep in mind as well, so I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for the feedback from the first episode we have. So I do realise that it was a little bit long. It was like nearly an hour. I honestly didn't realise it at the time when I was going through it. So I've tried to cut this down and keep this as clean as possible, and I'll try and keep this around 30 minutes max. So I am going to whiz through things. But if there's anything that I do say throughout this competitive guide that doesn't make much sense, so you're questioning why is this, and so on and so on, leave a comment in the comment section and I will guarantee I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So hopefully it does all make sense, and we'll cover as much as I can as I go through this. So let's whiz over to our showdown screen here. So we've got showdown. I'm going to pull up the first Stakataka variant that we've got. So this is, I'd say, a self trick room setting up Stakataka, because I think you can, like, one option you can go with, you can have a partner that sets up the trick room for yourself, or you can have Stakataka just be supported by something like, say, a Mungus, and then set the trick room up itself. I think even if you've got a trick room partnering Pokemon, I think it's a very good option to have always on it, because sometimes you can't always rely on your partnering Pokemon to be able to set up the trick room, or sometimes it might be difficult to bring that Pokemon to the game. So it's always nice just to have that extra option with Stakataka, and I think you've got room for it in the moveset. Obviously, I think you can go either Stone Edge where Rock Slide is, either or really there. I do prefer Rock Slide myself, because I think because you're going to be so slow if you get the trick room off, which is kind of going to be your main goal. Getting those Rock Slides off first, hitting super hard, and you've always got the flinch chance. I don't really like Stone Edge. I like it for the power that it does, but its accuracy is really, really punishing if you miss big turns, and it can cost you games. And with something like Stakataka, you can definitely, I can already see it. You're going to be in a situation where if you land your Stone Edge on, say, maybe a 50% health Landorus Therian form, this is just an example, and you're in a trick room, you've got 2 turns of trick room left, they've burnt their protect, so they can't protect this next turn, and you go for the Stone Edge and you miss, and then take a Rock Slide, and your opponent at that point is probably sitting thinking, oh, I've lost this game. But because of the accuracy and that, it's a high risk, high reward move, and it's totally down to yourself whether you want to use it or not, because the high risk means you're going to be getting more damage off. It's a single target attack, it's not affected by things like Wide Guard and such, but at the same time that little bit extra accuracy sometimes does come in handy. So it's entirely up to you. Moving on though, we've got Gyro Ball, and Gyro Ball, we all know, is a speed based move, so the bigger the difference in speed between the Pokemon using it to the Pokemon it's hitting, it creates a bigger gap in the damage, so the damage rises. And Stakataka being super slow means that the damage it's pumping out every turn is going to be nearly max, so it's pretty good. Stab, so it's got the same type attack bonus as the steel typing, being a steel type move. Then we've got Trick Room and Protect on this set, and I've left the item slot open here because I think you've got quite a few options here when you're not going down a Life Orb route or something else. So I think you could potentially go Figgy Berry, 50% Berry, which doesn't hurt anyone. You could go Lumberry to protect yourself against opposing spores and things like that, and that's considering if you haven't got a Tapu that kind of helps you with the terrain control to overcome those status effects. Or you could go Safety Goggles even, that's an option. There is a wide variety of different options you could go for. Mental Herb as well is another one there that we could look at. And it all really comes down to what and how your kind of the rest of your team is built. Like I was saying in the last episode with the Landorus T, you've got to cater your set to the rest of your team. Now, if you've got good support for Stakataka, where you've maybe got Fake Out support next to it, you might not necessarily need the Mental Herb, because you know you can get the Fake Out to burn the potential Taunt user, and you can get the Trick Room off pretty freely. You may want to go down a Lumberry route, because you think, if I get the Trick Room up, I'm not going to be hitting something like Amoonguss super hard. I'm not going to be able to remove it pretty quickly. And even if you've got your own Amoonguss, it's going to be able to get a spore off probably. It'll probably take a few hits from Stakataka. And just to get around that, maybe one turn to give you a bit of room to kind of get some momentum going. It's pretty big, so that's an option as well. But it does depend on what terrain support you've got with it. So this is a pretty basic set that I've got. You've got 252 HP, 120 attack EVs, 28 defense, and 4 special defense with a brave nature. You're going to get, with this one, you're going to get a beast boost in your defense stat, so just be aware of that if you do take this. But this is just a sample set to kind of just start playing with, see how you feel. It plays in the team and things like that, and then you can cater it, as I always say, to your own team and tweak the EVs here and there. If you don't need as much attack, you can put it in defenses, etc, etc. But just to go over some damage calcs, so I'm going to pull up the damage calculator here as we had last week and see if I can pull this up on the screen for us. There we go. So we've got the first one, obviously, Stakataka. Easy one-hit KO on something like Tapu Koko, which just shows how powerful it is, really. You've got to watch out for the -1, obviously, but what I wanted to kind of showcase really a little bit was some big heavy hitters and things that it's like 4 times a week against. So I think one thing that you've got to really keep in mind when using Stakataka, and it's like a common theme I've seen when like putting these sample sets together, is how important Intimidate support is alongside Stakataka. Now something like Hitmontop, Scrafty, Landorus Therian is extremely good, but I really feel like you need some sort of Intimidate support, and it really does help it in the middle of the match, in the midst of the match. If you can get an Intimidate off on that big physical threat, it can mean you can survive some big calcs. Now we've got Terrakion here, which is like a crazy strong Pokemon. Stab, fighting, attack, it's got close combat, which you can see here. So even against this huge defense stat that Stakataka's got, close combat is still going to be doing like 123, 150 damage, which is massive. But if you take it down, get an Intimidate off, you can reduce this down, and I'm keeping the attack stat high. 6.3% chance to one-hit KO Stakataka is pretty good. It's got a very, very small chance. So if you can get into a situation where you got Stakataka on the field and you're facing down against a Terrakion, you can get the Intimidate off. You're likely going to take that attack as long as you're full HP. You've got to keep that in mind. And even if you are intimidated yourself, your Gyro Ball is a guaranteed one-hit KO back on the Terrakion, which is massive. So, and there is room here to reduce that down if that's the only like Pokemon that you want to be KOing with the Gyro Ball. And that's -1 as well, remember. So you, pretty much every time you're going to be taking down the Terrakion, which is pretty nice with this attack investment. And that calc there is pretty huge. What else have we got? So we've got Gyro Ball, we've seen that on Tapu Koko. Let's go for a Tapu Bulu. This is pretty funny. This is really interesting, actually. Just shows how defensively strong Stakataka is. Now we know if you played the 2017 format, I think Woodhammer in grassy terrain is one of the strongest attacks that we've ever had access to. Now look at that. It doesn't even kill, and that's not even Intimidate, and that's off an Adamant max attack Tapu Bulu. The Bloom Doom in grassy terrain is a 2-hit KO, which is crazy. Just goes to show. But the one thing I wanted to show you was the let's see where we got here. Stakataka, Gyro Ball versus okay, what have we got? Have we got something going on here where the Gyro Ball's not doing the job? Maybe we need that reduced as well. Brave Nature, there we go. So we can see, I'm just making sure that this is alright. But yes, Tapu Bulu, Gyro Ball, guaranteed one-hit KO. And I think, is it -1? Well, it's not bad. 43% on -1 on a Tapu Bulu, so it's pretty decent. I'm just going to check that over. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, something like Tapu Bulu, you can take the biggest attack it can throw at you, unintimidated, and you're going to be able to pick up the KO back as long as you're not intimidated. So it's pretty nice, and this is just the sample set, like I say, so we're just going over that. Then we've got some defensive calculations with the intimidate support. Obviously we've seen the Taraki and the Bloom Doom. Let's have a look at Mega Kangaskhan, because that's going to be a big player as well, this format, Mega Kangaskhan. So we'll just get it. So the low kick there, you need the intimidate. Intimidate, you're going to take that quite comfortably. And your gyro ball is doing a big chunk of damage. So if you can get any chip onto the Kangaskhan, or even if it's one-on-one, straight up in a trick room environment, Kangaskhan will go for the low kick. You will survive it as long as you can get an intimidate off onto it, and then you can get a gyro ball off. Next turn you're going to be faster, and you're going to be able to pick up the KO potentially on it. Because let's have a look. Sucker Punch. Something broke. So I don't know what's up with Sucker Punch. Z move, we don't want that. So Sucker Punch, okay, so you take the Sucker Punch and low kick combination on -1 from an Adamant to Jolly Kangaskhan. Adamant Kangaskhan, you still take the low kick. You don't take the combination, but I'd imagine more likely Kangaskhan's are going to be Jolly. But that's just an example, and you can play around with those EVs spreads. You know, you can take some out of attack and put some into further defenses to make sure that you survive, like little combinations like that. But they're the things I want you to start thinking about when you're catering your own set, and this will become more apparent when you are playing it in a team. What you're getting KO'd by frequently, what you're surviving frequently, what you're KOing frequently, and that's a big one. What you're KOing. And then you do the calcs again and say, right, well, I'm consistently KOing this. Can I tweak my attack stat down a little bit and still pick up those one-hit KOs consistently? If you can do that, you've got room then to invest in defenses and elsewhere to you know, further your longevity on the battlefield, and that's the big thing. So just a little point to kind of go over there. The other one, the last one, I guess, was just a kind of a thrown in there, Excadrill, drill run. And this is from that's a life orbed Adamant Excadrill. Most Excadrill are going to have probably the Z move. So if you can burn that Z move, then the drill run on -1 isn't doing anything at all. So it's pretty good. And that kind of rounds up that. It's pretty straightforward, this Stakataka. Like I say, it is just a sample set to give you guys a little head start. And as always with the sample sets as well, I will put them in the description below. So there'll be a paste bin of all the sample sets, so you can take them away and use them as and how you want. And this is just something to kind of get started with. Now, I've done some defensive calcs here on attack stats, physical attacks. The one reason I'm not touching the special side of things is because you haven't got a special type of intimidator. There's no variant, a special intimidate variant, if you get what I mean. And now if we have a look at something like Gastrodon with Earth Power, there's not really, because the special defensive stat on Stakataka isn't the best. The amount of investment you're going to need without a resist berry is ridiculous. So it goes the same with this. It's not even a modest Gastrodon, it's not even max attack either. So I mean, you get the picture. You're going to need something like maybe this is where skill swap and the sorry, I keep flicking around this page, it must be quite annoying. Yeah, something like skill swap is quite nice from Cresselia in this situation, where you can skill swap the levitate onto Stakataka and you're immune to the ground type attacks, which is quite nice. And then you've got, obviously with Cresselia, we'll come to good partners later, but we've also got ally switch as well, which is a nice option to just go for the ally switch. You switch positions, the fighting type attack comes, Stakataka is hitting the Cresselia now, and the Stakataka is free to get an attack off. So you do have options that way to get around those sort of things, but like I say, we'll touch on those a little bit later. But this is predominantly why I'm not looking at the special side of it, because it's not the strongest specially defensive, and we can't really calculate without really specifically putting items on there that are going to resist those moves or other things, but we'll go through that in a little while. So the next variant that we want to look at is, let me just pull Showdown up again, is the Life Orb variant. Now, I will have to credit my good friend Mr. champ himself, Ray Rizzo, because I watched his competitive analysis a little while ago on Stakataka, and he really highlighted something very, very specific. And I don't know whether you guys know about this or not, but if you don't, basically with the Beast Boost, how it works, because of Stakataka's super high base defense, the majority of the time, even if you go max attack and you go positive nature, you're just not going to reach the heights that your defense stat is going to reach. So it means if you pick up a KO, you're always going to get a defensive boost, which isn't a bad thing, because when you're doing intimidate calcs, you can kind of look at it the same way, with a +1 defense is kind of similar to what a -1 on your opponent's side would be. Obviously there is variables there, but it kind of along the same lines, it would work out nearly the same. So it's not a bad thing. But the thing is, when you're in a trick room and you're wanting to really take advantage of those trick room turns, and you're wanting to pick up kill after kill after kill, you're wanting to increase your attack stat, because that's the one thing that's going to help you clear the field. So to do that, you have to go for an obscure nature. So you have to go for plus attack minus defense, go max attack with a defense IV of 16, and that gives you a defense stat of 201, and then your attack stat is 201 as well. So, and the way the beast boosts work, they work from attack, defense, special attack, special defense, speed, and because attack's obviously before the defense, then you will always get the attack stat, even though those two stats are the same. So it kind of makes sure that you're getting the most out of like your resources, so you're not dropping any further defensive stats, but you're getting that beast boost in attack. And I think Life Orb is one of those options with Stakataka that is extremely good. And I've kind of put superpower here. Now this slot can be completely open. I had a few options here, so I had superpower, I had ally switch, but I kind of really prefer having the Life Orb variant without Trick Room, and that's for a few reasons. So if you go Trick Room on it, then you know it's good because you can set it up, but I think because it's just such a strong attacker, you kind of want to have heavy Trick Room support with it, and then utilize this more as an attacking option. And I think because you've got the Life Orb on it and giving it superpower gives you the option to really like take on opposing Stakatakas, so you're not in a situation where you're kind of locked out just hitting them with rock slides and gyro balls that are going to be doing nothing. At least with like superpower or earthquake, you've got nice options there to do some decent damage against opposing Stakatakas, against Heatrans, which are going to be extremely problematic, because Heatran can take a Stone Edge, even a Life Orb Stone Edge, like pretty comfortably. It's taking a lot of damage, but it can take it comfortably, and it only needs that one turn to get a Earth Power off, and then that's the end of your Stakataka. So having access to superpower in this situation gives you a nice option to get rid of it before it can do anything to you, especially in a Trick Room environment. EV spread is very straightforward. 252 attack, 252 HP, 4 special defense, and that's pretty much, you need the max attack to get the beast boost in attack, and take advantage of that Life Orb. But the other thing with the Life Orb is, without it, you're kind of just whiffing on a lot of one-hit kills on opposing Pokemon, whereas with the Life Orb it bumps that up, and the amount of one-hit kills you actually achieve with Stakataka under Trick Room with the Life Orb compared to not having it is massive. It's such a game changer. It's allowing you to KO things like Kangaskhan, like Landorus Therian form, like really big threats without much trouble. And because you're going to get that attack boost every time, it means the next turn you're hitting even harder. So this is one that's kind of like, if you get it going and your opponent doesn't respect it enough or have answers to it, then it can just really snowball through your opponent's team quite easily. So it's a big threat of a Pokemon that needs a lot of resource to deal with, and make sure it's dealt with properly. You could always go again for Stone Edge of a Rock Slide, but I think Rock Slide, Gyro Ball, or your staples there. I think superpower or earthquake or ally switch or even Trick Room are just options that will more cater to your team. I kind of went for the superpower myself because I thought it gives you that nice option to get rid of some maybe harder counters that you might be seeing more and more come about because of how good Stakataka can potentially be. Just something to keep in mind, that it would be an option for you to use if you know, so be it. Going over to our damage calculator. So there we go. We've got the 16 defense. You can see here that you've got the same attack here and same defense here. So like I mentioned before, and this is the power that this gyro ball, this life orb gyro ball, does to a 4 HP standard Lander Asterian form. If you're not intimidated, I've got the +1 there to kind of counteract the intimidate from the Lander Asterian, but that damage is just insane. They're like, you guaranteed 1-hit KO. I mean, even -1, it's doing good damage. So if you can get a little bit of chip onto it, you're doing huge damage. And again, the same calcs work as before with the intimidate support and stuff like that. If you can get an intimidate onto you, if you've got an intimidate supporter in your Stakataka team, and this is why I think it's so important, you can switch it in, get the intimidate off, you can take the earthquake and then get the gyro ball off, and hopefully you've got 2 or 3 more turns of trick room to go where you can guarantee that you're going to get the knockout on Lander Asterian form or anything that switches in on it. So that's a nice option there. Let me just pull up my document, because I did make a little document with loads and loads and loads of damage calculations and stuff like that, and so I'm just going to quickly flick through it and see if I've missed anything out. Yeah, so the reason I mentioned superpower, yeah, that's pretty good. So let's have a look at some damage calcs. We've got the Landerus there. Mega Kang is one we already looked at. We can't write in Mega Kang though, can we? So we've got Kangaskhan, Mega Kang, Life Orb, Gyro Ball, guaranteed 1-hit KO on a 4 HP Kangaskhan, which is probably going to be one of the more common variants, which is just insane. 1-hit KO on Mega Kangaskhan. Like, if you'd said this a couple of formats ago, I don't think anyone would have believed you. It's such a big calc, and it's not a Z move either, so that's the other thing. If we go to another big threat, that is a very big threat, I think. That has access to Earth Power as well. Gyro Ball on Hydreigon, 4 HP Hydreigon, is another guaranteed 1-hit kill, which is pretty insane. And then Stakataka, we can go on and let's have a look in the flesh at this Heatran calc with superpower. So Life Orb superpower onto a 4 HP Heatran, guaranteed 1-hit KO, which is insane. Like, it just takes that problem out of the equation. Heatrans are going to be more likely to carry a Shucker Berry as well, so it's not likely they're going to have a Chopper Berry, and if they don't, then as long as you're not intimidated, then happy days really. You can always think about helping hand support as well with Stakataka, especially if you're running something like Cresselia beside it as the main trick room setter. Helping hand support there, especially with the Life Orb, that's stacking huge amounts. And what you can do is, there's a nice little thing that I always try and look at when I run helping hand in a team. The one thing that always kind of detracts the usage from a physical type attacker is Intimidate. But to overcome that, all you need to do is think, right, if I get the calc on just neutral, if I'm intimidated and I've got a helping hand user beside it, I can help in hand. That negates pretty much the -1, and then you're going to get the KO straight away on what you were meant to. So negating the intimidate. So it's kind of taking the intimidate away. As long as you've got the helping hand beside you, I'm clapping my hands for the helping hand support. So that's another option to think about. So all these calculations here are guaranteed as long as you've got the helping hand beside it. It is a bit risky because you're putting all your eggs in one basket and you're putting a lot of resource into one slot, and it can protect. But if you're in a trick room environment and you're not so threatened by its partnering Pokemon, what it's about to do, then you're pretty free to kind of do that and kind of just start cutting through an opponent's team. But it's something as well just to think about, and these are the little bits that you need to think about to how to get around some of the more obscure counter Pokemon and how players are going to react and what they're going to bring to battle and so on and so on and so on. And I'm going to try and speed this up because we're already at half an hour already and I need to kind of get through this. So that kind of covers the Life Orb set. I don't think I've missed too much out of that. Again, it's pretty straightforward, but it's just a starter, a sample set. I haven't really played too much with Stakataka, to be honest, but it seems like it's a decent starting place as well, and you can tweak after you've kind of tested. And like I said in the Lander Asterian video, the move sets and the EV spreads will come once you've tested more and you've got a better idea of what you need to hit KO, survive, etc, etc. So it can all be tweaked, but you've got to do that testing process. It's so important. Right, let's move on to the final Stakataka, which is a little bit of a different variation. And I'll pull up Showdown quickly here, and it is just a different look on it. So I looked at resist berries, and to be honest, I don't really like the resist berries on Stakataka because, for one reason, all out pummeling, you can't really calc to survive that without the resist berry and an intimidate, and it seems very kind of over the top for just one item. You got a lot of steps to take for that item to be actually useful against some of the big attacks that you want to be able to take. And in my opinion, if you can't take those, the biggest type attacks that you're kind of resisting, then you're kind of wasting your item. And that's just a personal opinion. Some people might think it's well worthwhile because you get into situations where you're going to take a drain punch or a mac punch a lot easier and get your trick room off. But I just think there are better options to do that. It's the same for the Shukaberry for Earthquake as well. Like the resources you need on top of that resist berry to take something like a Tectonic Rage, it's just not going to happen. Like it's just too much resource. This is kind of went, so you've got your resist berries and then you got your seeds, so your terrain seeds. And I do think the terrain seeds are actually worthwhile because you can terrain seed, you're going to have trick room predominantly probably on your Stakataka, so you're going to want it to stick around on the field for as long as possible. And with the Misty Seed, this spread here, so we've got Rock Slide, Gyro Ball, Trick Room, Protect. Now this moveset can be, let me have a look, have I made any notes beside this for the seed? I don't know if I have. Let's have a look. So we've got, yeah, just Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Gyro Ball, Trick Room, Protect, and let's see. And I think again you're going to need Intimidate support to go along with it, because it just helps its longevity on the physical side. But the defensive calcs that you're going to get in the Misty Terrain, let's come over to, so we've got an AV spread, 252 HP, 156 attack, 28 defense, and 68 special defense. So with that seed it does boost that a little bit further. And every calc that we've been through with Intimidate so far you will get on this set as well. So if I just pull up our, let's see, we want, yeah, so here's Showdown. Now let's have a look at Heatran with a seed. See, Earth Power. So that's a modest 252 Heatran, max attack, Earth Power. It's got a 6.3% chance to KO after the seed boost, which is pretty big. Let's have a look at Gastrodon as well. Gastrodon, going to be doing it. That's Hidden Power Ground. This needs changing, I think. This because Hidden Power Ground. Yes, yeah, so Earth Power again. Torkoal is another one as well, because it gets access to Earth Power now. So yeah, you're going to take that. Tapu Koko is another one. Tapu Koko very commonly has the Z move. So if we take the Life Orb off quickly and we go Z Thunderbolt, there you go, easy taking that. So you're easily going to take a Thunder, a Z Thunder as well. So it's pretty good and just gives you a little bit of longevity, gives you a little bit more room to operate in the trick room as well to get your attacks off and things like that, because you're going to be surviving things that your opponent doesn't expect you to survive. Some offensive calcs, so we're still going to be getting the one hit KO on stuff like Tapu Koko, you can see there, and yeah, Tapu Lele, like even -1 Stakataka Gyro Ball, you're going to be getting the KO as well, which is pretty insane. So like, yeah, look at that, which is pretty nice. So you're still getting it on -1, and that's like, you can even boost this up to 252. And I think, what attack did I have against that Tapu Lele? Like 176, and you're still getting it on -1. And I don't think we're going to see very many Tapu Leles with that much investment in this format, but I could be wrong. So they're the three sets that I've got. I don't think there's much variation at the minute, and without me actually going and playing a bit more with Stakataka, I don't really have much more information to kind of give you guys. But this, I feel like this is a good starting point, and this is kind of outlining how it can be used. It's going to be used in Trick Room. It's going to be a very hard hitting Pokemon. It just depends on your kind of style and how you kind of prefer to use it. If you want a bit more defense, or if you want to just go all out attack. and it does depend on what support options you have with it. So with that said, let us have a look at good partners for Stakataka. So good partners for Stakataka, we'll start off with Intimidate and Fake Out, and the premier choice I think is going to be Scrafty, because Scrafty offers you Intimidate, it offers you Fake Out support, and it's got Dark typing as well, so that's it's something nice to pair alongside Stakataka to hit things like Cresselia and other options that you might not be able to hit so hard. It's got options like Taunt as well that you can use to shut down opposing Amoonguses, but that Fake Out gives you the option to set the Trick Room up with Stakataka and the Intimidate there. Like, we've been through all the calcs with how good Intimidate support is with it, gives it that support as well. Other good options I feel are going to be Cresselia, because it's got obviously Trick Room, so you've got the double Trick Room option if you want, you've got one Trick Room option if you want. It's got Skill Swap to take away the ground weakness, it's got Helping Hand to boost the attack stat, it's got Ally Switch to do Ally Switch shenanigans, so you could technically a Trick Room with your Stakataka and Ally Switch with your Cresselia, or vice versa, because they both get access to both moves. So you've got really nice options there to kind of protect Stakataka and make sure that you get the Trick Room off at the same time. Obviously Helping Hand is super strong, and as well, one of the big weaknesses to Stakataka is fighting type attacks, whereas Cresselia can kind of come in, as long as it's not Scrafty, and do some big damage with the same type attack bonus on psychic type attacks, because it is a psychic type. So that's quite a nice option. Other options, we've got Landorus Therian form, it's got Intimidate. Again, we've already outlined and highlighted how important Intimidate is. It's got a good defensive switch-ins against those ground and fighting type attacks with its flying typing. It's a really nice switch in, and the Intimidate on top of that, stacking with that, really makes it quite nice synergy with Stakataka, especially if you can't get the Trick Room off and you need to get out of there to reposition your board position. I think Landorus is a very good option here. You've got Tapu Fini as well. Again, very good defensive synergy, because it can come in on those fighting type attacks, and it also sets the terrain up as well, because I think one thing that really causes Stakataka a lot of problems is status conditions like Spore and especially Will-O-Wisp. Will-O-Wisp, if Stakataka gets burned, it's pretty much it's just a shell of what it was previously, and that burn is going to really hurt your ability to get those big damages attacks off and things like that. So Tapu Fini offering that field control as well as protecting you against the status conditions. And finally, just to quickly cover, and there are a plethora of just different support options. These are just a few examples to kind of get you started on what you can kind of look for. Final one I've kind of listed here is Amoonguss, because it is a very slow Pokemon as well. If you can get that Trick Room off, you've got Rage Powder, which will pull in all those attacks to help you get the Trick Room off. And then once you're in a Trick Room, if there is problematic Pokemon, you've got access to Spore, and you can Spore things even if you are in a misty terrain. Things like Landorus Therian, things like Cresselia, things that are flying or levitating, you can hit with that Spore because they're not affected by the terrain. So it's still got usage. You do need to be careful and be a bit more observant about what terrain is in effect, but Spore can still be a very strong option, and Amoonguss is just a very good support option with Stakataka. It resists fighting type attacks, and it's going to be able to just pull them in with Rage Powder and just take them all day long, and allow you to just get momentum and start building your side of the field with Stakataka once you're in that Trick Room environment. So there's some options for you guys. And then we want to have a look at how to counter it. So I've highlighted some big moves to counter it. So you've got Earthquake, Earth Power, Hydro Pump, Scald. You've got all your fighting type attacks like Mach Punch, Drain Punch, Close Combat. There are more, obviously. You've got Aurora Sphere that I haven't listed. So there are plenty of options. Anything fighting, anything ground, anything water are going to be hitting it very hard, and it's not going to enjoy taking any of those attacks. You've got Taunt, which is very good because it's more than likely it is going to try and set up, especially when you consider what it might be paired with. If the pair that it's next to isn't a Trick Room setter itself, then you're more than likely going to see Stakataka probably going for a Trick Room. So if you can Taunt it, I don't know how likely it is to have Mental Herb or something like that, so most of the time you're going to be able to get that Taunt off. and Will-O-Wisp as well. Like I've already mentioned, Will-O-Wisp is so good against Stakataka, especially if you can just get the terrain in your control, make sure that there's no misty terrain up, you get the burn on it, and it's just not going to be able to just maneuver as well as it was before. It's not as threatening in a Trick Room environment as it probably would, as it would have been unburned. So just having that check for it is going to be really huge. Some Pokemon that I've highlighted that are going to be very good against it. Bulky water types, they resist the steel type attacks, and they're not affected too badly by the rock type attacks, so they can, for the most part, take them. So you've got Rotom. Wash, which is very good, resists that steel type attack Gyro Ball by 4 times with its electric and water type, and it has access to Will-O-Wisp, as we've already mentioned, and also Hydro Pump is going to be hitting it for really devastating damage. One of the ones that I really want to highlight here is Gastrodon, because Gastrodon is a flat out counter to this thing. It is very slow, so it's not going to take any damage from a resisted Gyro Ball. It's going to resist the rock type attacks that it's got access to as well. Even if Stakataka has something like Superpower, it's still not going to be hitting Gastrodon for too much damage. And Gastrodon now, through move tutors, has access to Earth Power and is going to be easily capable of picking up that one-hit kill on Stakataka. But this kind of goes to support more along the lines of why Amoonguss is such a good supporting member with Stakataka, because it threatens these bulky waters. It can put them to sleep, and it can hit them with Giga Drains and things like that they're just not going to enjoy taking. So combination of Stakataka and Amoonguss is very strong, but I'd still outline these Pokemon, bulky waters, as very good counters against Stakataka. Just notable mentions there as well for Jellicent. It is very bulky, it has access to recovery, and it has Will-O-Wisp as well, so it's very strong, very slow. Suicune, we know how bulky it is. It doesn't have access to Will-O-Wisp, but it has access to things like Scald. It has access to Roar as well, which is a nice option to really stop the Trick Room if Taunt is not an option for you right there and then, or maybe Mental Herb's an option. You've got Roar that's an option on Suicune to stop that Trick Room setup. And Tapu Fini is pretty good as well. It's going to be hitting very hard depending on what item you have with it, like Specs or anything like that. But again, going to be a problematic Pokemon for Stakataka to deal with, especially if you can't get the Trick Room set up, and that's the big thing. Next thing I want to definitely mention is Aegislash, because Aegislash is probably the best Pokemon to wall out Stakataka. It resists the Gyro Ball, it's very slow, it resists the rock type attacks, it's not affected by Superpower, it can be affected by Earthquake, but at the same time, it's just going to be a massive pain for Stakataka to deal with. It also threatens common partners like Cresselia as well for super effective damage with those ghost type attacks. It's going to be sitting on the special side for the most part, so Stakataka is going to be taking heavy damage from those Shadow Balls. And yeah, it's just going to be a very difficult Pokemon for you to deal with. And that's another reason why I earlier said Scrafty would be a very good option with Stakataka as a partner, because with Scrafty you've got the option to knock off opposing Aegislashes and do big damage with your dark type attacks and potentially remove it before it is too much of a threat, so you're kind of covering all your bases there. Intimidate is very good. Again, it kind of goes along the same lines as Will-O-Wisp as well, just to neuter that attack stat from Stakataka to stop it doing as much damage. And things like Landorus, Therian, especially if you can get out of a Trick Room environment and threaten it with an Earthquake or a Superpower, especially on -1, you're going to be in a much better position than you would be on a neutral attack stat. Stakataka coming at you. That was a mouthful. Scrafty is also very good. It has Intimidate and threatens with Drain Punch, doing huge damage, and resists the rock type attacks, and it's super slow, so it's not going to be taking as much damage from the Gyro Ball. And then the final little group we've got there that kind of go and group in with Scrafty as well is Conkeldurr and Hariyama, and your bulky fighting type attackers. They resist the rock type attacks that Stakataka can throw out, and they're super slow, so they're not really going to take too much damage from things like Gyro Ball, and really threaten with their big offensive attacks like Drain Punch, Close Combat, etc, etc. And you could even put something like Safety Goggles on one of these Pokemon, so Amoonguss isn't even an issue. Like Safety Goggles Scrafty would be super good. It gives you that immunity from Spore, it makes sure that you're not affected by Rage Powder, and you can pretty much just keep on attacking Stakataka as much as you like until it's gone. So it makes it a lot easier to deal with. The same can be said for like that item, the similar item on something like Conquered or Hariyama. So just options to think about. And oh man, we're at 44 minutes already, so even though I feel like I've whizzed through this and probably missed loads out, I feel like we are pretty far into it. So I'm going to wrap things up here, guys. As I mentioned, everything that I've said, like the paste bin sets and everything like that, will be in the description below. If you've got any comments and feedback, please let me know, because I'm dying to hear your feedback and what your thoughts are, and if there's anything you think I missed out that I should have covered, things like that. But these are primarily sample sets, and just to give you an idea of what Stakataka is capable of, just a brief overview of my thoughts about it as well, and what potentially it would be good paired with, and what would be good to kind of counteract it as well, and things to look out for. Like the moves we've got listed here, a big list of moves that you need to be able to say, right, if this is going to come on to me, then I need to be able to deal with it, and I need an answer to switch around to deal with it. So that's all about how the rest of your team synergizes. And like with all the sample sets, they're good starting point, but they are sample sets, so they will make a lot more sense, and you'll be able to tweak them as you go through and test with them. So I do hope you have enjoyed this episode, guys. I hope it has made sense. I hope it's a bit more fluid than the last one. It is a little bit long as well. We will try and cut them down a bit more as we go on, and it's just a work in progress that I will do. So I'm going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the episode, do leave a like, leave your comments as well, and I will get back to each and every one of you. Massive thank you to everyone for all of the support and any questions and anything that you've got to say. So until next time, guys, we will be doing another one of these very shortly. So until then, I will see you later. Thank you as always, and see you very soon. So until then, bye bye.